From WNBC-TV, this is News 4 New York with Chuck Scarborough and Sue Simmons.
Good evening, I'm Carol Jenkins. Chuck is off tonight. The furor over the ambulance shortage in New York City claims a casualty.
James Kerr, the beleaguered longtime executive director of the Emergency Medical Service, resigned tonight. He quit during an urgent meeting called to figure out how to cure the chronic problems that kept half the ambulances off the street and in the shop. News 4's Mary Civiello has more on Kerr's resignation and the reaction.
In Jim Kerr's 8 years as the city's EMS chief, he'd survived repeated attacks from inside and outside the ambulance service. The timing of his resignation tonight came as a surprise to some, but not to those who had watched Kerr sweat, as he blamed the fleet problem on the heat, and Mayor Koch didn't buy it. In a memo to HHC President Joe Ivy Buford today, Koch said that when the ambulances started going down in May and June, EMS should have immediately asked for help from other city agencies. Kerr, Koch said, should be aware of his mistake. In a statement tonight, the president of the Health and Hospitals Corporation said she'd accepted Kerr's resignation because he felt that with all the recent criticism, he couldn't make the changes at EMS he felt necessary.
I hope Mr. Kerr's departure is a signal of constructive change on the part of the mayor and the way he treats his emergency medical workforce.
The union voiced optimism tonight, but members say they hope the mayor doesn't see this as an end to EMS's emergency, one they see as staff and money.
EMS has been a second-class agency and is performing a vital first-class service. And to that extent, I think it has gotten short shift. I think it does need more resources, but I think we've learned that you just can't throw resources at problems if there's poor management.
Others point out the crisis is not limited to Kerr or this year. In May 1981, Oscar Gonzalez died of an asthma attack, waiting an hour for an ambulance to come. After a long investigation that same month, the city controller had concluded that more than a third, 35% of the ambulances are likely to be out of service on any given day. In 1984, a Staten Island high school student died in a woodworking injury while waiting 21 minutes for the EMS. That year, the state controller concluded an audit finding preventative maintenance schedules weren't kept, and this undoubtedly contributed to the high downtime of vehicles. The next year, in 1985, the city controller again found major problems with EMS management, questionable appraisals of work contracted out, unnecessary work, excessive prices, and inordinate delays. Following up, the Queens DA didn't press criminal charges, but said in many cases we found evidence of mismanagement or poor management. Then last year, 1987, 51-year-old John Levy, a diabetic, died waiting 45 minutes for an ambulance. 44% of them were out. The Department of General Services issued a scathing report concluding that the EMS has a managerial problem of significant proportions. And tonight, a year later, this woman buried her cousin, a young man who died a week ago today, waiting for an ambulance. She hopes he is the last. Mary Civiello, News 4, New York.
Earlier today, Brooklyn Borough President Howard Golden offered a proposal that he says will put an extra 30 to 40 ambulances on the streets. He wants to hire those not used full-time by volunteer hospitals. And Golden wants voluntary community ambulance corps to provide at least one ambulance staffed by trained personnel.